Hello and welcome to The Problem With. My name is Benny. I run a channel known as The Comic Historian, and I consume a lot of video games, comic books, and movies on a regular basis. This allows me to have very opinionated opinions, in which I like to make videos talking about those opinions. If you enjoy things such as our dramatic readings of comic books, then check out our secondary channel, Comic Story and Full Story, where we moved a lot of it over there so that I can get on this camera and talk to you directly and complain. But I'm not really complaining. The entire point of this series is so that I can pretend to be negative, but then give you a fun spin on it and give you a fix to the problem. Because being negative is stupid, and I don't want to do it a lot. I'd rather be positive and talk positively about things. That's a word. Look it up. Try and find the letters in positively. You got me? Cool. Today we're going to talk about the MCU and why I don't understand why they need to change the powers of various superheroes, but thanks to an argument on Twitter, you guys proved why they do it. Now you're probably wondering, what the hell is that man talking about, and what is he doing for energy? Using one of our sponsors, GamerSupps. Use the code COMICS at checkout. Today at about noon aroundish, they've got some new stuff dropping, including some new caffeinated drinks. But anyway, so now you're wondering, what the hell are you talking about? You're going 90 miles an hour. Well, it's simple. I was thinking about this the other day. And I know a lot of people like to argue and think about this, but I've never really sat down and thought about it. I was watching the show Echo. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's the latest bomb from the MCU. It's a show that came out, has a niche amount of people that love it, and most people want to crap on it, and overall, the internet seems to have agreed it's worthy of a mild meh. I didn't finish it. I found it boring, but I did think about one key aspect that is important for this video. Echo's powers are different. If you've just watched the show, let me explain. Echo's powers within the show are more generic superhero abilities. Enhanced speed, enhanced strength, she has the ability to aim with no issues at all, and all of this is stemmed from her ancestry, where she's learned all about who she is and what her tribe has done in the past. That's cool, it's not bad. But her actual powers in the comics is that she has the ability to mimic the fighting styles of anyone around her, a la Taskmaster. And then that eventually became the power of the Phoenix. The Phoenix, one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel Universe. So what it really boils down to is that Echo's powers were changed for the MCU. Now, on paper, that's not a bad idea. It's not a good idea, though, and I'm going to explain in a minute why. Because this got me thinking. This would be the second character within the MCU that has had their powers changed. If you don't know who I'm talking about, Ms. Marvel is my second case. We'll go into what I'm talking about in a second, but I need to explain her powers. Because as I'm going to explain, 90% of you just said in your heads, Benny, they had to change Ms. Marvel's powers. She had to go from inhuman to mutant. That's not her powers. That's part of my argument here. So Ms. Marvel's powers within the comic book universe is the ability to stretch, grow, and shrink. They give a timey-wimey kind of explanation in which she's moving her molecules throughout her entire timeline, so that if she takes away the molecules from one point in time to get smaller, that point in time where she needs to get bigger, that's where the molecules are going. It's weird, convoluted, and what it boils down to is that she has the ability to stretch, grow, and shrink. She can also, I think, shapeshift. Sometimes it's a power that she uses occasionally, and then writers forget it's a power until they need to use it again. But what it boils down to is that is her power set. In the MCU, Ms. Marvel's power set was changed to be hard light constructs. If you are in the comic book world, that is the Green Lantern's powers. Okay? She basically has the ability to make giant fists out of hard light constructs, or make platforms out of hard light constructs. On paper, changing the powers doesn't matter, but it does. And that's the argument I want to make today. So I decided to go on the internet and give them ammo to fight with me about. Why? I was bored. So I went on the internet and I asked them, what is the point of changing a character's powers? Using the examples of Echo and Ms. Marvel. But I also brought up another point. What is the point of changing the character at all? And the other character I used as an example was Master Chief, always taking off his helmet when it comes to the Halo TV show. Now, I thought at the time that this would lead to a fun discussion, pseudo-argument, about characters' powers being changed and whether or not it matters to the overall story. Oh boy, was I wrong. You see, what did happen is, first off, I was called crazy alt-right and using the arguments of incels. My response to that is, I don't think you know what an incel is. It's becoming a term that everyone's using for anybody who is against women. Secondly, no, that's not me. And thirdly, just because you have an opinion in which you dislike powers being changed does not automatically make you on that side of the wheelhouse. Secondly, the next thing I got called out for was that they needed to change Miss Marvel's powers. Her being inhuman doesn't matter. And that made me go, wait, inhuman to mutant isn't a power. That's an origin. Everyone began to argue with me that they had to change Miss Marvel from inhuman to mutant. And I was responding to the first couple of people with, that's not her powers. They changed it from stretching to hard light constructs. That's totally different things. The third argument that people presented to me was that powers don't matter. It's all about the characters themselves. And that one I disagree with. So let's go through each of these. First off, the first big argument that I received, well, not big, it was one of the actually mild points, but people automatically said that that is the argument that everyone that is against the MCU makes. The people who love to say things like MCU. Let me clarify that real quick. If I ever get to a point on YouTube where I have to use terminology such as MCU, I'm going to be quitting because I'm never doing that. Secondly, that's dumb. You can't just lump somebody into a group of people because they share a common interest or a common argument, I guess is the better argument to say. Because my argument is, why did they change the powers? Not that it's inherently wrong, okay? So that one's out the window. You can't lump people into groups just because they say something off the cuff on Twitter, X, whatever Elon Musk wants to call it. Secondly, the next argument was, and this is the biggest one, I think, why they did it. Miss Marvel's power, no one mentioned Echo, by the way. No one mentioned Echo. No one cared. No one cared about Echo. Miss Marvel's powers are changed from inhuman to mutant because they had to be, because, they're not touching the Inhumans in the MCU. This one right here is why I think the MCU changed the powers of Miss Marvel and Echo. Was it good for the story? No. Does it matter to the story? No. And we're going to go over that in a minute when I go over the character versus the powers. Does it matter to the story? No. I think the MCU changed those powers because none of you, the individuals who are learning it from this video, would know. Simply put, your average comic goer does not read comics. They watch movies, they go on the internet and watch my videos, they follow the other guys. So unless one of us makes a video about the changes in the powers, you don't know what we're talking about because the general audience isn't consuming these comics. When a comic does sales of 10,000 to 20,000, it will stay on the shelves. But that means that only 10 to 20,000 people actually bought the comic. How many people do research on that post afterwards, Because when you say powers, people assumed I was talking about inhuman to mutant. That made headlines. She was turned into a mutant. One of our more common people who responds to a lot of the stuff I stated was confused and said that they've changed it in the comics. And I responded with, that tells me you haven't read Miss Marvel in a while because she still has stretchy powers. They haven't changed her powers in the comic. People are assuming that the change to mutant changed her powers without even reading the book. So if we go to the question of why does the MCU think that they can change Echo's powers, Miss Marvel's powers? Why do they think that Halo can run around without a helmet? Oh, Master Chief run around without a helmet. I know someone's going to give me crap for that. It's because they don't think you're reading the books. They don't think you have the knowledge to know that they've even done the change. And if they don't think you guys know about this stuff, they're going to do whatever they want. Now, let's talk about Echo for one moment. Echo gets a follow-up argument with this because the argument becomes, well, Echo barely exists in the comics. And that's true. Echo barely does. I'm not sure if she existed before the Daredevil run, but as far as I know, she was mostly created by Charles Soule to do a Daredevil run with Daredevil in which it was a blind guy teaching a deaf woman how to fight with having a disability. And it was a fun storyline and one of the better Daredevil storylines. But as far as I know, she was created for that. She may have existed before that, but when this type of situation happens, if they did exist before that, it's barely a mention. I was doing research on the character Morph from the X-Men, and I thought he had gotten created for the animated series only to discover Morph existed in the 70s and that he got changed and adapted to be what they wanted. So even if Echo existed before this, it really doesn't matter. But do you see the way I phrased that? It didn't matter if she existed before the Daredevil run. That's the argument people have when it comes to Echo in her show. They've completely changed the Echo character for the show. This is what brought my entire topic to my head, because they completely changed her for the show, and the general argument was, well, she barely exists in the comics. That's why they used her, so that they can do whatever they want with her. You're not wrong. That argument works, and that's part of the reason why some of your more favorite characters exist. Why did they use Scott Lang for Ant-Man instead of Hank Pym? Hank Pym has a huge history. Scott Lang, much less history. That's what they do in the MCU all the time. But with the situation of Echo, it got me wondering, why use Echo at all? It's not like there's billions of Echo fans clamoring to see Echo on the screen. Okay, Echo barely exists. So why do that? And if you're going to use Echo, why change the powers? Like, it's just a series of why. And it boils down to what I believe is because it doesn't matter if they use the character. It doesn't matter if they don't use the character. The general populace doesn't know who or care who she is. With the case of Ms. Marvel, I have no idea why they changed the powers other than they didn't want two stretchy guys in the MCU. But they wanted to use Ms. Marvel because Ms. Marvel, unlike Echo, is a newer character with a big fan base, and if you can put her into a movie, they're going to go see it. You're going to reach out to that small niche of Ms. Marvel fans and bring them in. But again, I go down to the question of why change the powers? Now, we go to the next portion of our argument here, which people made an argument of it doesn't matter. The character's family, personality, sidekicks, side characters, that's what makes a character. They could have no powers at all. So let me ask you, would you read a Peter Parker comic where he did have no powers? He was not Spider-Man, did not care about great responsibility and all that other stuff. Instead, he was just a really nice guy that would save people on the streets. And if your answer is yes, let me point you to dozens of indie books featuring the exact same premise. There's actually nothing here. There is no indie book, so they exist is my point. My point is they exist. Anyway, the point I'm making is, if you're asking for just a heroic person and their powers don't matter, those stories exist. There are hundreds of independent books featuring people who are just better than a normal human being at being good at what they do. Various movies, shows, comics, they exist. Why would you remove the defining factor that makes Spider-Man, Spider-Man? Because if you remove Spider-Man's powers, it doesn't work. What makes Spider-Man work is the powers, the personality, the family, the background, the rationality. Everything about him makes him Spider-Man. But powers are in that. Otherwise, you're talking about a completely different character. So let's go back to Ms. Marvel. Ms. Marvel is all about her family, her religion, and her history. Those, I would say, are the primary three factors of Ms. Marvel. And all of those exist in the show. So why change the powers? Now, if you were going to change the powers and make it important to the plot point, like there's a reason why, we needed the powers to be hard-like constructs because of this story beat. I would agree with you that the character is more about everything except their powers. I would agree with that point, except they don't do that. Echo having different powers did not aid her entire story. The story could have been told in the exact same fashion with the powers to mimic everyone around her and state that that came from her ancestry. That you could do that. Just like Ms. Marvel could be the exact same story, but instead she has the stretchy powers. So now you're probably going, well, Benny, you just kind of argued yourself out of a corner or into a corner, because the argument is that it doesn't matter why change the powers, but that's what it comes down to. And that's where this whole argument started. Why? If it doesn't matter to the character, and we're going to tell the exact same story, what's the point? Why not just make the character true to life from the comics? If changing the powers to the hard-like construct is not going to change the fact that Ms. Marvel is more about family, religion, and her history, and her friends, and all that stuff, then why change the power? Why not give her the stretchy abilities? Why not give her the ability to embiggen? Now, in the case of Ms. Marvel, maybe that was a budgetary reason, but maybe it was the Mr. Fantastic reason. But they don't tell us this. They just say they're going to change the power. And then you're like, why? What's the point? And then with the case of Echo, there's no budgetary reasons. You know, we didn't need her to do it. You weren't going to Phoenix. You were just going to make her mimic things. Why not make the character what they are in the comic? So when someone goes to buy the comic, they're not going to be surprised by the change in powers. And that brings us to my final point in this entire topic, because no one's buying the comics. It doesn't matter what they change in the movies. The people who aren't buying the comics are going to continue to not buy the comics. When I tweet out, oh, they changed Echo's powers and they changed Miss Marvel's powers. And the response is they had to change Miss Marvel from Inhuman to mutant. That right there is the end of our argument because people aren't buying Miss Marvel's comics. While I may have gotten a response that said the power set needed to be changed for blah, 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 or the power set didn't matter or whatever, none of that matters if no one's buying the comics. And that's where I think we are with this entire discussion, because I've been wondering, why are they changing the powers of superheroes in the movies, only to discover it's because since no one's buying the comics, what does it matter? You can write your own story. Now, that's the last point I want to bring up. I know I said last point of the argument. This is the last point I want to bring up. Just go with it, all right, man? I don't have a list of points. Anyway, I mentioned Halo, the Halo show. Terrible show, okay? Halo is about Master Chief and his discovery that he has emotions and needs to be controlled by Katana and blah, 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 blah. The Covenant have a human being, and the human being is like some prophecy, and it's not Halo. When that show started airing, I had a theory that this was a science fiction show that they couldn't sell and that they were just slapping Master Chief into it so they could sell the show. Rumor has it, Halo was a science fiction show that couldn't be sold to market and bounced around many, many studios until they attached the Halo brand to it. I don't know if that's true or not, but what if that's the case with everything else? Everything that gets changed drastically in media is because they have a project that they want to sell. They can't sell it because it's not good. Look what you did to Halo. But they think it's so good if they just attach what they want to the project. Oh, if we just get Halo, everyone's going to love my science fiction show. No, we hated it. It was garbage. Now, Miss Marvel didn't change too much from her initial character. But if you did that, people would have rioted. All 5 of us that watched that show. But Echo, I feel like it wasn't an Echo show early on. I feel like somebody else had another message they wanted to put across. I'm not saying agenda or any of that stuff, because if that's the case, what was the agenda in Echo? That someone with a disability can succeed? I like that agenda if we're going with that. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't just a story that they couldn't sell. And then somebody was like, hey, we got this Native American story. Why don't we put a superhero in it? And that was the direction they went. I don't know where to bring this argument at this point, because it all boils down to when I tweeted out the general public on the very small platform of Twitter, no one even knew powers had changed. No one mentioned Echo. Everyone thought I was referencing Inhumans to mutants, which honestly, it doesn't matter at all. Because I don't know if you're aware of this, because apparently none of you read the comic. It was me and 5 other people that read the Ms. Marvel comic. She didn't do anything with the Inhumans. Lockjaw was the only one she worked with, and that's just a dog that teleports. Is Lockjaw dead? Did he die with the rest of the Inhumans? I would not be surprised if Lockjaw's just in a kennel somewhere like, somebody let me out. So when they made her a mutant, it was like, okay, maybe she'll actually hang out with another superhero once in a while. So that's where we are. I want to know your opinions on all of this crazy insanity of a rant down below. I made the internet mad, and now I've moved it onto my channel to make you madder, because I'm a genius. Now I just need to think of a good rage bait title. Why Echo sucks. I don't think it sucks. I think it's mediocre, but you'll click that, right? All right, guys, we're making a new channel because we do this every year. And this year we're making Benny Has a Problem With. That is basically going to be this concept, but about things that are not superhero related. So we're going to be talking about Twitch. We're going to be talking about a weird sex story that I found in the news, which is bizarre and funny, and I'm not going to mention it here because we have a family-friendly audience over here, but it'll be up on that new channel soon. And we're also going to be talking about a few other things that are coming out and just basically following drama, news, and my opinions on all of it. If you like that, if you like this, me ranting and raving over stupid stuff, then check out Benny Has a Problem, or Benny Has a Problem, whatever we end up calling it. The link will be down below. And if you miss more audio dramas, check the channel every day. I release a video every day. What are you missing? But if you really just want more audio dramas, check out the Comic Story and Full Story channel. It's a mixed bag of re-uploads and brand new videos, because when we complete series over here, we throw them over there. Basically, we made a whole classic Comic Story and channel. Love for you to check it out. So that's Comic Story and Full Story, and whatever we end up naming the other channel, the link will be down below, because whatever I say in here, you won't find because it'll be brand new. On that note, guys, last surprise announcement. Dan T. Editor is making Webtoon Historian, or Dan's Got a Webtoon. I like Dan's Got a Webtoon. You should. We haven't named it yet. So what do you think? Dan's Got a Webtoon? Dan Toon Historian? Dan Toons? Dan Toon sounds like Toontown. I don't like it. Makes me think Dan Toon in Toontown. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. We'll see you next time right here.